What is good, all of our listeners and viewers? Welcome to another episode of Games and Groceries. My name is Adam.
And I'm Liz.
And I'm finally growing out my hair. No more bald weirdo. I'm coming in, growing out my hair, because I'm facing a new chapter in my life. Hooray!
So time for a hair change.
Yeah, because last week's episode I talked about a little bit about how I quit my youth ministry job. We're probably moving back to our home state in the beginning of November. So I just figured, new chapter in life, why don't I grow out my hair again? Hi, buddy.
Liz gets a little blue in hers?
We'll see. But yeah, it's just a matter of like where you're working and is that like appropriate.
Yeah.
But yeah, it all depends. Maybe you don't have to work.
Woohoo!
Because this YouTube channel will blow up.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah. Could you subscribe to the channel, by the way, if you're watching us? Subscribe and get us to 1 million subs. That would be great. Thanks.
That would be insane. Could you imagine like shooting up to 1 million subs in a month?
It happened to Jack Black when he did Jablinski Games. Yeah. That's crazy. I know, but we're not Jack Black.
No.
So, Liz, how you doing?
I'm all right.
Yeah.
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 Nothing to share this week.
Just waiting to move.
Nothing. Waiting to move, waiting to pack. I really love, I don't love packing. I'm one of those people that I like to see progress.
Right.
I like to view it. So when I'm packing and I see how much I've packed already, I get really excited. I'm kind of a nerd.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that. And
yeah.
Yeah.
And we also have guests on the show today.
Yes,
yeah.
we do.
So we have guests. We have the two Justins from EON Gaming. We have Justin and Justin.
Woo-hoo.
So before we get to them, we're going to go into our top 3 gaming news. But before we go into our first segment, let's talk about our social media garbage. So you can follow us on Twitter at Gaming Groceries, or you can follow us individually. I'm at Ace the Grocer.
And I'm at Journey First.
So you can follow us there, follow us individually, and be friends with us there. Which one's your favorite podcaster? It's obviously me. I get it.
Wow.
But obviously it's Floki.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
definitely.
Floki.
We're a soft second and third.
Yeah. Sorry. Floki. He's sleeping right now. But anyways, so you can follow us on Instagram, Games Groceries, all one word. We can check out behind the scenes photos, a video that I posted about channel updates, as well as pictures of our dog Floki. So definitely subscribe to both. Well, follow Twitter and Instagram, because every single week on Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will post a question of the week, and you have until Sunday, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to answer that question so that we can make a video about it on Wednesdays. So you can follow us there. You can also check out our website, gamesandgroceries.com, where you can listen to all of the episodes from the website, as well as find out where you can listen to the audio versions of the website, as well as articles that I've written in the past. And I promise you, at some point, when all this craziness is done, I will write more articles. I promise you. It's just been a whirlwind of craziness.
We'll start it in the fall. And now our fall has completely blown up.
Yeah.
And maybe in winter.
So, yeah. But definitely check out the website. And finally, if you're watching us on YouTube, definitely consider subscribing to the channel. And if you enjoy this whole episode, if you get to the end and you really like it, give it a like, give it a share. Someone who else would enjoy it. And if you're listening to us on the audio versions, definitely consider leaving us a review on iTunes, iHeartRadio, wherever you can leave reviews, Podchaser, wherever you can leave reviews. Definitely do that. And if you would like me to read your review on the podcast, just email me. contact@gamesgroceries.com, where I can say, hey, nice review. Let me read it in... I can't do the Kevin voice off the bat, but definitely email me, contact@gamesgroceries.com.
And you can let us know if you have any movie suggestions for Movie Minute.
Yes, totally. So let's get started with our first segment.
Top 3 Gaming News.
The top 3 gaming news is gaming news that we saw in the past week, and we like to rank it 3, 2, 1 just to give you a condensed version of what's happening in the games industry. So let's get started, because we want more time for our guests, the two Justins of EON Gaming. With our number 3 gaming news, it's Fallout 76.
Oh, our favorite.
Woohoo! So, admittedly, I haven't even touched Fallout 76 like since probably a year
I
now.
was gonna say probably since it released.
Yeah.
You maybe opened it a couple times to check on it, and you're like, no.
Yeah, I probably did it in like February of this year.
Yeah.
But once again, Fallout 76 is on a paywall. Woohoo! Tries to pull a cash grab on players with needed items. So, the Atomic Shop, which is the microtransaction store within Fallout 76, was promised, right? It was promised to be only cosmetic items. Fine, whatever. You know, you want to dress up like a park ranger? Cool,
Yeah.
whatever. I don't care.
Yeah.
That was the promise. However, keep in mind, this is a survival game, right? A survival game where you need to feed your character, let your character drink, keep up. And sometimes when you keep up food, it rots too soon, right? So then you can't feed your character. So in the Atomic Shop, there is a refrigerator to preserve your food for making it last longer, therefore progressing your game further. It's on sale for $7. $7. A refrigerator to preserve your food that's needed in the game.
Yeah.
That's
not cosmetic.
Yeah, that's not cosmetic. And there's no way to earn this. There's no way to earn it in game. You just have to grind away. But there's also a robot on sale for $5 that gathers scrap for you. And that scrap can use to build up your settlement. This is also a necessary thing, right? And it's on sale for $5.
Those don't sound cosmetic to me.
They are not. So fans are a little angry about this. This is coming from, I believe I got this article from Polygon. Yeah, Polygon. And so I want to read just a quick snippet of that article. The article reads, the final straw came in the most recent update, which sells a refrigerator and scrap collector robot in the store for 700 atomic points, which is $7, and 500 atomic points, which is $5, respectively. These are camp items with powerful in-game utility as they can preserve food and scour the nearby wasteland for useful crafting items. There are no ways to earn the fridge or scrap collector in the game. The only way to unlock these items is through the Atomic Shop. That's not cosmetic, is it?
No, it is not.
So, with these whole challenges to build up atomic points being so grindy and low reward, this is just pissing fans off.
Yeah.
It really is. And it's just like...
Pisses me off.
Yeah.
I don't even play this game, and this Bethesda has pissed me off consistently this year.
Just like, build your game, man. Like, I don't understand.
Make the game better before you piss everyone off again.
There was also an update that actually broke the game again. I saw Mr. Matty Play's video on it, and it just completely busted his game. And it's just like, can you just focus on making your game? Stop selling these leather jackets. Stop selling $7 refrigerators.
Yeah.
Come on. Just make the game better.
Yeah.
My goodness. I don't know. I'm not trying to say it's super easy to make a game like that better, but it doesn't seem like their focus is in the right direction.
Yeah, their focus isn't to make the game less buggy and like a consistent, well-flowing game. But every time they do an update, something crashes or something else breaks. Like, it just seems like they're cutting corners, and they've been cutting corners since the day it released.
And you can argue that the $7 and $5 will go towards making the game better. You can argue that, but it's a $60 game, people.
Yeah.
It's a full price game. Not anymore. It's on garbage sales.
Oh, yeah.
But that's the thing. It's a paid for game.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah.
So let's just move on to our number 2 gaming news. And
okay.
This is coming from my favorite gaming franchise, Assassin's Creed. Now, the reason why I didn't like Assassin's Creed Odyssey is because it didn't feel like Assassin's Creed to me. I'm a long time standing, coming from the first game, and then every single year I bought it, and it just... Assassin's Creed Origins was okay. I mean, no, it was great. I loved Assassin's Creed Origins, but Odyssey was just a hot mess.
Yeah, you weren't a huge fan of that one.
I do not like it. So this is coming from GameBiz. I forget what the website's called. But
it's from somewhere.
Yeah, GameBiz.biz, GameIndustry.biz. That's the website. GameIndustry.biz. And this is why Ubisoft isn't abandoning open worlds. And this is an interview with Yves Guillemot, who is the head of Ubisoft, right? And he's starting to say that, well, you know what? Open world games are lucrative. We can make a lot of money off of it. And part of that interview, the saying is like saying like, well, would you ever consider going back to Assassin's Creed Unity, where it's a focused game within one area, right? Yeah. One city. Would you ever go back to that? And Guillemot has this to say: no. Our goal is to make sure you can have a Unity, which is Assassin's Creed Unity, within an Odyssey. If you want to have a story that's 15 hours, you can have it. But you can also have other stories. You live in that world and you pursue what you want to pursue. You haven't experienced many Unity-like experiences. Do you understand what you're saying, man? Like, side missions don't count, dog. Yeah. Like, okay, so what he's trying to say, right, is saying like, well, the average amount of players play Odyssey for 60 hours. And so there's a lot of side missions in our games. There's so many different stories. So but
they're not multiple main stories.
Right.
They're side missions.
And that's the thing. It's just like, I don't think he's understanding that side missions don't have the same impact.
Yeah.
As a focused story like Assassin's Creed 2 was, or Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. There was a main story, there was a main lore, but they're so Assassin's Creed is becoming so eclectic and it's just so filled with things. Mm-hmm. And that's just not Assassin's Creed. It's becoming all their games. I mean, look at Watch Dogs Legion, right? It's so open world that you can interact with any NPC within the game, and that's just unnerving.
It seems like they're losing sight of what they originally did with their games.
Right.
They're losing sight of the original reason for the game and going with, look at what we can do now. Like, they're like too excited with modern technology.
Exactly.
And they're just doing everything they could possibly do without, and like I said, losing sight of what they originally set out to do.
Yeah. They're trying to reach the masses, but the best lesson I've ever heard with content creation is that when you try to reach everybody, you end up reaching nobody.
Yeah.
Meaning that you can't reach anybody. Like, have a niche.
Yeah.
Have a niche. Like, just let Assassin's Creed
be what it is.
I'm playing Gears of War 5 with a friend of mine right now on online co-op, and we're just playing through it. I'm like, this doesn't feel like Gears.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like Gears of War. This just feels like Skyrim with chainsaw guns. It's just open world, and we were saying it's like, listen, with Gears of War, you need like a 2-minute cutscene and then back to heads exploding. Like, that's what it is. Like, that's what Gears of War is.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, the Coalition can do what it wants to do, and Ubisoft can do what it wants to do, but I think they're just missing the point here.
Mm-hmm.
So let's briefly go into our number one gaming news, because we want to give more time to our guests. And GameStop is closing up to 200 underperforming stores worldwide, and they're going to be closing half of their stores in the next fiscal year. That's guaranteed.
Half of their current stores, or half of what's left after that 200?
Half of what's left in that 200.
Wow.
Yeah. So, in an earnings call, GameStop declared that in quarter 2, in a 3-month span, get ready for this number, they had a net loss of nearly $500 million. A net loss of $500 million, near that. I think the number was $488 million. Oh
my goodness.
Within 3 months.
Remember back in the day when you wanted to be a manager at a GameStop?
Yeah.
I'm really glad you didn't choose that career
Me
path.
too.
We'd be in a whole lot of trouble right now.
Well, within that earnings call, they said, like, well, like, we always get losses whenever it's like the end of a console cycle. I'm like,
not that big.
$500 million of loss? No, that's not. It's like,
it's a loss. No, that's a big loss. That's
in
big.
3 months.
Yeah.
3 months. And so to compensate for this, they're going to be closing 200 stores. And That's normal for retail.
Oh, yeah. You have to compensate for losses that big.
Yeah. And they're doing it right before the fiscal year ends. And it's 200 stores out of, I believe the number is 4,400 or 5,000. I can't remember which number it is. But it's 200 stores. And it's unfortunate because people lose their jobs. However, in the same earnings call, I want to read this quote here. Another part of GameStop's plan is to turn things around, is to scale down. The retailer confirmed on the earnings call that it plans to close 180 to 200 underperforming stores by the end of the company's current fiscal year. The store has, here's the quote. The store has 5,700 stores worldwide. So the impending closures, if they reach 200 stores, amount to about 3.5% of its total store base. So, yeah. Now here's the kicker. The company added that it expects a much larger tranche of closures to follow in the coming 12 to 24 months, though a specific number wasn't provided. A much larger tranche of closures in the next 1 to 2 years.
That's crazy.
They're going to be closing half of its stores within the next year or two. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. And a lot of people are going to lose their jobs because of GameStop's faults. And because GameStop has always tried to push sales over its customers, that's why they're failing right now.
I mean, it's sad in general when you see stores closing because you see it everywhere in all companies because online ordering is more popular. But when it comes to GameStop, it's not even that. It's not just online over retail. It's the fact that GameStop is very annoying to go into. And they've made that experience increasingly worse and worse as we've grown up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's sad, but they've kind of brought it on themselves in this situation.
Exactly.
By having just a poor business model that they weren't willing to make better.
Yeah, and like I said, they were blaming this all on like a console lifespan and how they're going to make money with the Scarlet and the PS5, and I'm like, you're
not going to make that much money.
It will be a miracle if they survive by that time.
Yeah.
No, and that's the thing. Things like Amazon exist. Things like Target exist. There's other places where they can get their. They think that they have the monopoly.
They have the monopoly in gaming stores.
Sure.
But the thing is, there are better discounts, better advantages of getting them online. You can get a physical copy of games on Amazon still.
Yeah.
You don't have to get digital copies, so it's not like they have the monopoly on physical copies of anything.
Yeah. So we'll see where this all goes, but they are going to be closing 200 stores. That's specific. That's exactly what they're doing. However, they are going to be closing half of its stores by the next fiscal year, which is insane to think about. But we'll see, and look forward to those liquidation sales, I guess.
Right. Let's go.
Man, it sucks when people lose their jobs, though.
Yeah.
So let's just move into our next segment because we have an interview to give.
Yes, we do.
If you don't know EON Gaming, they like to this is their business.
This is their job.
They make products currently for the Nintendo 64 and the GameCube and just attaches to the back of it. And you can hook up an HDMI and it has the smoothest frame rate possible. We're going to talk more about it in the interview. So enough of me talking. Enough of that. Let's talk about game preservation. Let's talk with EON Games. Let's talk to the two Justins with our next segment.
It's interview time.
All right, everybody, welcome back. We would like to welcome our guests, the two Justins of EON Gaming. Say hello. I'm going to start with Justin Scerbo, because I was about to say, you can get started, but there's two of them. So
there are two of us.
Yeah.
There are two. Well, thank you so much for having us, Adam. I'm Justin Scerbo. I'm one of the co-founders of EON Gaming, joined by my comrade here, my compatriot, Justin Chou.
Yep, and I am also another co-founder, one of the three. Well, I guess two of us of the three are here.
Yeah.
But I'm also from EON Gaming. I hope that was a good enough introduction. What else would you like to know?
Yeah, right. Social security number. Blood
sure.
type.
Yeah.
No. We would like to get to know you before we get started with our talking points with these 5 brief questions. And let's start off with a really fun one, because when I first met you at LI Retro, and I guess either one of you, you received a cake in the shape of a Nintendo 64, and Will Wolf from Wolfden would like to know, how did you like it? And kind of a follow-up question, why are review embargoes so important?
So I'll jump in and kind of give the story about the cake. So before our latest product came out, the Super 64, we were lucky enough to have a whole bunch of reviewers get the opportunity to try it out early and see what it's like and kind of get their impressions of it, as well as giving them sort of a bit of leeway time so they could test it out and put it through its paces, and give them the time to properly construct a review, right?
Yeah.
So during this process, we put down a review embargo, and the need for something like a review embargo is typically to create an equal playing field for content creators. It's really important to us to kind of maintain a great relationship with all of the wonderful people that have gotten a chance to try our products. And in order for them to essentially compete in their own mediums, they kind of need a fair playing field in order to launch videos, right?
Yeah.
Because if one person were to say launch a video or release some piece of content early, then it would make it incredibly harder for other reviewers who might have also been afforded the same opportunity to, get their proper view counts and all this sort of stuff, because a lot of that like SEO space would be taken up by the person who posted first, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So in order to kind of maintain that equal playing field, we usually send the products out a bit ahead of time, so it gives them the opportunity to try it out, put it through its paces, kind of collect their full thoughts on it, and then create a review for it, which I'm sure takes time for shooting and editing and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
it's always like a push and pull, right? And from both parties, from the people who are reviewing it and the people releasing it, right? And it's interesting that you bring up this question, because I don't think we've ever really had a question about review embargoes. But Justin and I used to also work in media originally. We used to also do things like from written articles to videos and whatnot. And getting in products is one, a big honor, because it means that somebody's trusting you with something before it actually is released, because they actually kind of appreciate and accredit, I guess, your opinion, right?
Yeah.
For one. But the other thing too is like they also kind of like hold this thing that could kind of ruin a launch entirely. Like any one person who gets one of these things beforehand could technically ruin a launch. And at the end of the day, I mean, from any company, especially ours, which is only 3 people large, there's a large amount of a large amount of risk on our side put in from just things like product development, or manufacturing, and that we want to make sure that the launch is as explosive and as exciting for our audience as possible. Of course, that kind of falls in line with the reviewers. So we typically try to give people like 2 weeks to 4 weeks to like play around with the thing. I mean, I'm sure you've read articles before about like video game companies who give out the game to people the day before it launches. So now you have to write a review within a day. And how do you actually spend enough time with something to get like a properly developed opinion on it in a day? You can't really. It's kind of difficult, right? But the problem, as Justin was saying before, is that everybody's vying for those clicks and those eyeballs, right? So you want to make sure that you give your reviewers and the people who like are interested in your product enough time and enough respect, so that they can actually do their jobs well, create good content. But at the same time, if you give them too much time, then there's a lot of chances of broken embargoes and a not so explosive or exciting launch, which is scary.
Yeah.
Very true.
So then this actually dovetails very nicely into the Wolf Den. The Wolf Den, situation. I don't know. There's no way I can say it without it sounding bad, like
Wolf Den
or
Gate.
something.
Yeah.
But so essentially, what had happened was they were hosting a live stream, and on their live stream, they basically got our product in and were sharing with the audience, which is totally kosher, saying that they did get the product and that they're about to start a review. But then on the actual post or during the live stream, they actually like started opening the product and giving sort of like a like an off the cuff, like firsthand impression, which was not cool. Like that was something that we were trying to avoid.
It's not terrible, but we already told all of our reviewers that we didn't want that kind of content yet. So
yeah, it's not like the worst thing that could happen, but it's more so like I was more so worried that another reviewer might have seen that this happened and they were like, well, EON told us the rules were this, and then this guy's doing it, so like what the heck, right?
So special treatment territory.
Yeah,
there's a lot of negatives that go along with it, but
again, it was in our best interest to try to maintain an awesome relationship with all of our reviewers. So weirdly enough, while this was happening, I was watching this Wolf Den live stream, not because I knew they were going to talk about us, but just I really like their content a lot. And, I was just tuning in, and when I saw it happen, I've got Bob's number. Like I've got his, so I shoot him a text, right? And he like doesn't answer the text, and I'm like, oh dang. So then I send him like a DM on Twitter and all this stuff, and eventually he sees it and he's like, oh, so we're not supposed to be doing this right now, so we're gonna stop. So they basically stopped, and I messaged him afterwards, and I was like, listen, no big deal. I just want to make sure that everything's like cool for all the rest of the reviewers, so like let's not worry about it, like it's we're moving
water
on.
Under the bridge.
Exactly, we're moving on, right? But then at LA Retro, Will comes up and he hands us this cake that he made and frosted to look like an N64.
It looked
which
amazing.
was like the most, oh my gosh, it was like the most humble, like awesome thing that I've ever seen somebody do. And I was like, what is this for? And he was like, this is we're sorry we broke embargo, and we still want to be friends cake. And I was just like, oh man, like you definitely didn't have to do this. Like this wasn't that big of a deal, but like thank you so much. Like,
and it's funny, it's like moment. In what other industry would you see people that tight to a community be like, I'm going to be nice enough to like make a cake, like an apology cake? Like, yeah, that's probably not happening in other industries. The gaming industry is far more different. Anyway, sorry about that. Anyway, continue.
Yeah. so that's that story. A cool anecdote.
No, it was super nice of them. And that's the thing. It's like, I saw that encounter a little bit, and I saw the cake, and it was just like, the Wolf Den just seems like really, really nice people, like they're super good brothers.
Absolutely the coolest dudes.
Yeah.
And they're like local to us. Like we're from New Jersey. They're in Long Island, so they're not too far out. So, we've, been lucky enough to like meet them at prior engagements and stuff. And ever since we first made a connection with them, it's just been an awesome relationship going forward.
Well, that kind of segues into our next question.
Yeah, so we heard that you met Bob Wolf at a World War II reenactment for World of Tanks. Can you tell us the story?
Justin, you were the one that struck up the conversation.
Oh yeah. So essentially, same kind of thing, right? Like I've been a fan of Wolf Den's content for a while, and like Justin said, a while ago we used to run a games media site where we would go to some of these press events and review stuff or whatever. This event in particular was kind of an interesting scenario. Should we? I'm not sure if we can really say like who brought us there or whatever.
I mean, why not? Is it that big of a deal? So, I mean, it's just an event.
Well, I don't know. We have a friend, Jeff. It's this guy who works at a website called The Chive. Right.
Okay.
So he was kind of preoccupied with some other stuff that he was doing, but he got an invite to this thing, and he was basically like, "Listen, it would be really cool for us to get to this thing, and if you could like." He's like, all I would really need you to do is go and take a bunch of pictures and then just send them to me. Like I just
write 2 paragraphs about the experience.
Yeah. So he's like, I just couldn't physically be there. Would you guys be down to do this for us? And we were like, yeah, sure. Like whatever. I mean, like we really didn't have much going on. Like there was no like financial anything. It was more just like, hey, can you just do me this favor? I just need you to go to this thing.
And it was in Long Island, so like it's not even like 2 hours drive away, really.
Yeah, so we go to this thing, and it's pretty cool. It was like a press junket for this new World of Tanks. I think it was World of Tanks Mercenaries, and they were basically taking you around this tanks museum where you got to like see the tanks up close, and there's guys like historians that are like telling you about all this stuff, and then at one point they put you on this like Humvee kind of thing and then drive you through an old battlefield, and there's like battlefield reenactors like going through the whole thing, and there's like cannons like firing and stuff, like obviously not like real cannon shots, but like it's
people died. It was real. Very real.
Yeah. So So it was cool. It was a good time. And while we're in this Humvee looking thing, there's all these other press people that are just around us, like fully kitted out in like weird like army military gear. And I look across the way and I see who I think is Bob Wolf, and I only know him, or I could only recognize him because I've seen his YouTube videos however many times. So I see him sitting across the way, and like I had never met him before or anything. So we get to a stop or whatever, and I go by and I'm like, yo, like, are you Bob Wolf? And he's like, yeah, like, what's going on? I was like, oh, cool. Well, hey, like, I'm a fan of your content. Like, I like what you do, blah, blah, blah. And he was just like, oh, cool, whatever. So we just like are having this conversation talking about this ridiculous situation that we're in. And that was kind of it. Like, nothing like really huge sort of grew from that. Yeah. But, we followed each other on Twitter and all this stuff. And then, fast forward almost a year, right?
Wow.
And now we're doing this EON stuff, and I was like, well, this might be the kind of thing that's in his ballpark. So then we shoot him a DM and we're like, hey, you want to like, would you be interested in reviewing this thing? And he was like, yeah, sure, like, okay. So and then it kind of just matured from there. And we've been, like I said, super lucky to have him review some of our stuff and check it out and give us his thoughts and impressions. And yeah, it's been pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's funny, like when you said that you met him there, and he's like, oh yeah, totally cool. I met him at LA Retro 2 years ago, and I just saw him, and similar to you, I was like, I know that guy from somewhere, and I just could not place it. It's just this tall, lanky dude, and like the same kind of haircut. I was like, I know him, and I was like, hey, do I know you? And he's like, you might know me from YouTube. I was like, oh, you're that guy.
yeah.
And he's just super cool about it, like just a really nice dude. But
for sure, it's really awesome. Like the more events and stuff you go to, you start to make a lot more of those connections, and it's kind of cool seeing that not really like a barrier, but like the barrier of like, oh, you're just like this person that I know from the internet, and then you get to meet them in person. You're like, oh wait, you're actually a real person, and there you are. It's a cool feeling.
So speaking of meeting each other and, building relationships, that brings us to our next question, that you are the two Justins of EON Gaming. However,
that's right.
You're also friends from college. And I just want to ask you, how did this friendship start and evolve into the company?
Sure. That's a good question. I'll take that, Justin.
Yeah,
I'll take that
do.
one. So we went to Rider University up in Lawrenceville, New Jersey. And at the time, I mean, both of us completely separate schools at the time, albeit in the same dorm, dormitory, I suppose. So that was where everything started. I was in, what was it? I was a finance major and global business major. He was in journalism, so we didn't really have many classes together. But it was one moment where there was like an icebreaker game of Assassins in our dorm where we went around and like essentially met people by attempting to murder them, so that's where it all started. So then after that, all of their like friend groups started talking, and that's where I met Justin, where he told me he was into video games. And for me personally, all I knew was if you're into video games, then the first question is what are you playing, and then the second question is do you play Smash, which both questions were answered pretty intelligently to a gamer's point of view, I guess. And I was just like, all right, this is my type of person, let's play. And then after that, it just sprang from there. There was a moment where later on in college, Justin was working on his like journalism blog for video gaming, and that got him a press ticket to E3. And I remember seeing that, and I personally being or dreaming of going to E3 ever since I've heard of it from like these Game Informer magazines from way back when. I used to be like, oh man, if that was, I would ask the GameStop employees whether or not GameStop employees whether or not it was possible if you get a job at GameStop to get into E3, and they were like, they don't even invite us, man. Like you have to be, it's very exclusive industry passes and stuff. So I was like, wow, Justin, you're doing something right. So by the time we graduated college, that was the moment where Justin and our friendship grew up to a point where I wouldn't say we can ask for favors from one another, but there was a moment where 2011 came around, and I was like, oh, Justin, you're going to E3 again. What do I need to do? Who do I need to pay? Like, I don't care. Just tell me what needs to happen in order to get to E3. And he was like, oh, all right. Yeah, sure, man. Fill out this form, do this, come in as the part of my blog, and we'll see if it works. $500-$600 later, plus a plane ticket and a really terrible, an amazing hotel. I'm sorry, because at that time, I think, Justin, you were working at the Hyatt.
Wow.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It was a pretty cool situation. Actually.
It was a
Yeah.
really cool situation. We had a really nice suite with two other of our other friends. But that's where everything started. Like we went to E3, we got to play all of these different games like Dark Souls 1, and other games that weren't so good like Resident Evil Umbrella Corp or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
And that was the moment where we were like, okay, cool. We met the voice of Sonic, Aaron something or another. We met
Wow.
we saw a few other execs from Sony, and we didn't get to go to any of the the conferences at the time because we weren't that cool, but we got to see a lot of these people in the industry that we've been following for the past decade or so. So there's a moment where we were truly we came back and we were sitting on this balcony and we were just talking to each other and we were like, I like the job that I have now, but we need to get here somehow. We need to work in the industry.
Yeah.
And that's really where I think our friendship started to really blossom, because there was an aligned goal at that moment.
Man.
Yeah, it was actually a really cool pairing of stuff. You meet so many different people in your life that kind of affect you, and the types of relationships you have with them are so different and interesting and stuff. But my relationship with Justin has always been one that's really just so different in all of the best ways than my relationship with anybody else. Because when it comes to chasing goals, right? Justin and I are so aligned, it's ridiculous, right? I think we have the same kind of drive in one another, where it's we see something, we're getting that thing, you want to
get those trophies, those platinums, you gotta work towards them,
Exactly. This is what it is, you know what I mean? In almost any scenario, it's Justin has that kind of very assertive, I'm gonna get into where I want to go, I see where I'm getting, and I'm gonna get there. And I feel I was kind of the bridge to help him get to E3. But then once we were there, he was kind of we kind of had this meeting of minds where we're we're gonna control our destiny right now, and we're gonna do what we've got to do to make this our lives. And and everything else since then has been history.
Man,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I like that, because Justin Scerbo, when I met you and we were just
you can call me Chou. If that helps.
Chou. By the way, I like your Discord name, Chou Da. I was just oh, I get it.
Thank you, high school street names.
Yeah. But
you don't even want to know what my first one is. But anyway, continue.
Oh my. But yeah, when we were talking and I was talking, I was actually talking to you, Chou, your dad, Alan, and the drive that all three of you have, I was yes, that's where I want to be. That's where I want to go. It's just to be driven and not have any kind of excuses. All three of you just have the same kind of molded mindset that's saying listen, we're gonna get somewhere, we're gonna make this work, and I loved that drive about you guys.
Because you know what it is. I'm sorry to cut you out.
Go for it.
Cut you off. And I do appreciate those words a lot, because we do put a lot of time in. I don't know. Weirdly,
we're trying really hard out here, man.
Justin and I like to. Well, at least I like to equate it back to I don't know. It's weird. Everything comes back to old RPGs. For instance, Diablo, you can try to spec in many different ways, but you'll get a kind of mediocre, character at the end of the game, at the end of the day, right? But if you start specking specifically towards what you're trying to get to, you can become that professional level or a much more effective character way later on in that game, right? So one of the things that I keep thinking of is well, if you have problems that lead to the goal that you want, or not problems necessarily, but challenges, you just got to solve those challenges, and every challenge you solve will get you one step closer to where you're trying to get to. So Justin and I were at the end of the day, a very broad, dream. We want to work in this video game industry. And it started with whether it be applying for different things to all different types of spectrums, from PR agencies to media outlets to things like Rooster Teeth, production agencies, anything that can get us closer to it would help us. Unfortunately, those were highly in demand at that time because everybody wanted to do it. So how do you diversify yourself? And then that's where we started being okay, so Justin started taking on much more SEO and internet and development based focused jobs and careers. And then I started going in much more I guess he was also marketing. I was doing much more digital advertising, project management, account management, that kind of stuff. Yeah. And eventually we learned enough to be okay, so now from this point, I understand the video game industry to an extent, and I understand my skill sets to an extent. How can I apply what I know and create something that's needed in the video game industry so that we can make our own place? Because it's so difficult to get a job there, right? That's why I feel you look at these YouTubers and you look at Twitch streamers, and they all have that same drive and that same motivation. It's like, I want to be here, but nobody's gonna give it to me, so I gotta make it. You know,
Exactly.
And then I think you pair that with just a general like passion and interest for the industry. Like gaming's been a part of our lives since we were children, like little kids, right?
Yeah.
And in Justin's case, Alan like has kind of been a driving force in his interest in games as well, which is awesome, to have that kind of kind of situation. And then really like kind of having that know-how to be able to sort of carve out your own path, because there's only so far you can go if you're trying to like jump onto something that somebody else is doing, right? But if you know enough to be able to like see a part of an industry, be like, there's something here, like there's something missing, there's something that we could do, something that's not available that we can make available, and really just having that sort of like gusto and drive behind you, where you're just like, well, I'm just gonna make that thing, I'm just gonna do this thing.
Yes.
And that is like EON, right? Like with EON, it's like retro gaming's been a massive passion for both of us for like forever, right? And into my adult life, I've definitely spent more money on retro games than I'd care to admit.
Yeah.
But the idea of having this kind of like enhanced nostalgic experience is like super attractive to me. And I'm like, man, if this is something that like that we really care about, that we're really passionate about, then maybe some other people are too. And like let's see what how people will respond to this. And we've been very lucky in the sense that people have responded super well. So
it's funny. It's again coming back to that Rooster Teeth thing, but like Bernie Burns, the guy who started Rooster Teeth, had the same idea. It was like, well, if I find this funny, I'm sure there's other people out there that also find this funny, so let me just put it out there, right? In our regard, it was like, well, we want to play our old games again, but they all suck because HDTVs don't work with them. So what are we just going to throw this stuff away? No, we're going to figure it out. And then after we figured it out, we were like, well, what are the chances that there's other people who might want this too?
Yeah.
And then how do we make it simple, and how do we make it sexy, and how do we make it like the best it can possibly be?
Yeah.
So,
and I guess the best part about the video gaming industry, and I guess where we're at right now, is that the closer aligned you are with the video game industry, the more authentic everyone now knows you to be, because you're just doing things that you want to be doing. And it works so well with gaming because, I mean, who doesn't want to pick up a video game and play it? Like, that's the best part about video games, rather than like collecting and buying the physical media. But still, it's like all of that stuff is so easily relatable and so fantastically like the passion is just so easy to come by that I feel like a lot of people can relate to that,
Man.
Yeah.
So I would like to bring us to, well, we have a couple more minutes and we have a couple more questions. And I want to get into something. Well, Liz, you can ask this next question of just something to
This is
get to
nothing
really
to
know
do
you.
with what we were talking about.
That's totally cool. We tangented for a bit.
If you had the power to morph into any animal, what animal would it be and why?
Whoa.
Oh man,
These are deep questions here.
I appreciate you asking, giving us the question a few days before, but I did not read this one.
Oh,
I have
man.
not let me think. Animal?
Yeah.
Favorite animal.
If you could morph
any
into
animal.
any animal.
Oof. I did watch Planet Earth just recently.
Ooh.
And
I mean, I'm happy to lead if you want to think about it for a sec.
yeah, go for it, man.
So, I mean, I think most people would have a similar take, but like obviously you want something with flight, right?
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
Some kind of
Okay.
bird, because that's just gonna give you a totally different perspective on the world, right?
Nice.
So I was trying to think of like a cool bird,
Yeah.
and I know it sounds so like lamely like patriotic or whatever, but probably something like
Flamingo.
an eagle, right? Like a bird of prey,
Ooh.
something that's like strong
Mm.
and has a big wingspan and can fly mad far and just looks badass. Like that's probably where I'd be.
I like it.
Yeah.
A bald
Nice.
eagle.
Nice.
I like it.
I think flight is probably the power
Yeah.
that I would want to acquire, but maybe the ability to eat endlessly might be the best way to go. I don't know. I mean, thinking now towards the bear situation, because I feel like bears, I mean, they're fast
That
and
was
they're
my
like
answer.
ravenous, but they're also kind of lazy, and I'm kind of in that mindset too. It's either on or off,
Yes.
So I feel like I might. Maybe, I mean, the whole Asian thing. Maybe it's panda. I don't know. They're really lazy though. They don't do anything. So maybe not the panda situation. Maybe a nice brown bear somewhere in Montana.
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, I was gonna
What about
say
you
that-
guys?
I was gonna say a bear. Like I was gonna say like either a black or brown bear or grizzly
Okay.
bear.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, I mean you don't get much stronger than that, right? They're just
Exactly.
pure muscle.
Yeah.
Is
man.
the grizzly doesn't come in shades of black or brown? How does that work?
think
Are they
they-
different
I think
bears
they're
entirely? Is it like
brown.
the square is a rectangle, but the rectangle's not a square?
Well, no, there's the black bear, then there's the brown bear, and I think there's the grizzly bear.
The grizzly bear, I think, is typically brown, but I think they're just bigger, like they're beefier.
Yeah, and they're fluffier too.
no, that's all muscle and that's
Exactly.
beefier.
People see
Oh.
me as fluffy, but it's just like, nah, bro. And then I just turn into
What?
a bear. Liz, what's your
Oh,
answer?
man.
Save me.
See, I went more with like, oh, my favorite animal's horses. I want to be a horse.
You run really fast.
Yeah,
Dude,
right.
I just
One
imagine them like
horsepower.
running free, like the ones that like live on the beach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I just want to
Wait.
run, just run.
Horses are from the beach?
No, there's
Chickadee.
yeah, there's a couple of beaches that like there are horses that live there.
Yeah.
Ah.
Like in
I once
Assateague?
vacationed in the
where was it?
Caribbean and rode horses.
The Caribbean, yeah.
Yeah, so like there's horses like that, and they just run, and it's just, yes, that's what I want. I just
Yeah.
want to be
I
a
got you.
free horse and run.
I mean, who doesn't want to run on a beach quickly? I mean, as
Exactly.
humans, you
Right.
can't run on a
With
beach
their
quickly,
beautiful
and your calves
mane
start to
just
kill you.
flowing.
Yeah, right.
Awfully
See,
majestic.
A horse running on a beach is fine, but a bear running on a beach?
That's scary.
terrifying.
Then it goes into scary territory.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
with our last minutes on this interview section, very briefly, I want to ask you guys, because we talked about how we're all in the same mindset here, how we all want to be bears on beaches or bald eagles. But from each of you, what's one piece of advice you would give to somebody who is either scared or nervous to follow their passions in life?
Ooh, I got a ton. But Justin, do you want to go first, or should I go first?
I'd say you go first.
All right, I'll go first. So I have a little sister, and I give her advice all the time, as well as her friends and my own friends too. I mean, it's weird. Like
Yeah.
everyone's scared and everyone's nervous about making that like leap, especially when you want to like pursue something. So it's like almost as if you're asking the question, like, well, who am I? Why do I deserve like to accomplish that kind of dream, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that I tell a lot of people is like, really, it comes down to, it always comes down to action, right? But before action comes planning. And a lot of the things that you have to do, at least in our Justin and in my case, right? A lot of the things that we've done is we sit down and we think things through. It's not good enough to just say, I want this.
Yeah.
It's necessary to think, okay, well, how do I get this, right? So if it comes down to working in the industry or starting your own, development studio or, creating your own media outlet or creating your own YouTube channel, it's one, how well do you know that space? And then two, do you think you could create something good enough? And if you do, then the next step is the hardest step, which is let's start doing it.
Yeah,
you
just
know?
start. Yeah.
And the moment you start doing it, and this is something that Justin and I have learned to understand over time, and it's way scarier, obviously, being on the other side of this, but that was back in 2011 when we started doing things, right? All the things leading up to that, like from going out to conventions, our first media passed, show was GDC 2015. So that already took 4 years just to get the media pass, like truthfully, like properly. And then after that, the network expanded drastically on those 2 days. Then I think they've expanded at all. So network is another advice that I would give you. The network is the true asset, right?
Yeah.
But then after that, it comes down to, okay, so now keep working, keep getting noticed, and it's going to be a grind, but eventually you'll understand, and you'll come to understand this, that the grind is partially both the worst part, but also the best part, because it does get you to the point where you are understanding, you're intaking so much information, and you're understanding exactly where to go next, and there's a direction, and you aren't directionless, and you have the direction. And then eventually, there's a breaking point where you achieve. And you're like, I've made it to this point, but now what's the next thing after that? And that's the big thing. It's just making sure that you have a point to shoot for, and then continuously moving in that point. All decisions from where you are right now to where you want to go have to get you towards that point. It doesn't have to be directly in that direction, but as long as it's generally in that area or generally moving forward, if it's instead of a forward, maybe it's like a forward right step or forward left step, it's getting you closer. That's a good step. Take that action.
I would probably complement this with a few, I guess, more like ethereal things, some like the stuff that's happening in the background of these thoughts as well, which is like, I mean, the first thing that I think is probably the most important thing for anybody, and this is in all facets of life, business, love, friendship, relationships, whatever, like everything, it really comes down to mindset. Like you have to, it's like law of attraction, right? Like if you're not putting positive vibes out into the world and you're not thinking that what you're doing is getting you to where you need to go to, like it's not going to happen. So the key thing that you have to do is just always be thinking, or always be putting yourself in that positive mind frame. Always be like, grateful and kind of like, I don't know, just always sort of pushing yourself and being like, this is going to work out the way that I need it to if I work hard enough. We are going to get to where we're going to get to because we're doing all the right things. You know what I mean? You have to just kind of like visualize what you want and like really be like constantly reassuring yourself. It's like self-talk, right? Like you just keep telling yourself like, we're going to be okay. We're going to do this, right? And then you back that up with the work, like Justin was saying.
And you know what helps? Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
One thing that helped me, because at 2015, June 1st was the day that I left my job and I started working on the passion full time, essentially, with Justin. But certain times there was moments where it was like, man, this is really hard. Like I see only minimal gains and I don't know like how much longer I can do this for. I need to pick up like a side job just to continue like expenses, whatnot. But is it worth like putting yourself out there for the next 2-3 years just to see if you can make it? Yes. Because if you don't make that choice, then you're going to regret it, for one.
Yeah.
The second big thing was just I had these inspirational post-it notes that I put next to my bed whenever I woke up, which was like, get up, you can do it. Like, do that. You need it. You need that self-talk.
Yeah. I think the last two things that I would add to it would be always shoot higher than what you think you can do. Like when you're setting your goals, when you're setting like what you can do or whatever, you should always be shooting higher. So like when Justin was using the example of like we worked and then we finally got to a place where we got a media badge and we walked into a place and we're like, dang, like we're experiencing this in a totally new way. Like that wasn't the ceiling, right? Like you should never look at a situation like there's a ceiling. You should always be like, okay, well, how are we going to take this even further? How can we make this even more successful? How can we, get, just keep growing this thing, right? Because it's that process that's going to make it feel fulfilling. But then the other part to that I think is equally as important is while you're always chasing that higher, next bigger goal, you want to be aware and kind of like grateful for the situation that you're in right now. Because even like how Justin's saying, it's like the grind to hit those first milestones is a lot of work. You know what I mean? It's a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of patience, attention. You're not going to get the results that you want every time, but you got to keep doing what you have to do. And then like once you achieve whatever it is that you're looking for, you realize that it was through that grind. Like that's when you feel the most fulfilled in life. You know what I mean? It's really when you're putting the work in. It's like that moment where you're like, this is kind of how you keep yourself humbled. It's like you look at like, man, I have the opportunity to do this. Like I am working towards my goals. I'm not doing nothing. You know what I mean? I might be working and the work might be hard, but I'm doing it for all the right reasons. You know what I mean? I'm putting myself in a situation where I'm getting to where I want to be, So
totally makes
that's
sense.
kind of what I would say.
Man. No, great answers from all of you. I hope anybody who's listening heard that last question. And if you have something that you want to start, go ahead and do it. It's going to be a grind, but I hope you took some inspiration from these words. But with that said, I think this is a good time to jump into our final segment. We're going to be talking about game preservation and how we can accomplish that as the years go on. So let's get started. Let's just go into our final segment.
Coffee time.
So every single week, we like to take a discussion from the games industry and just talk about it like we're at a coffee shop. And we have two guests here that we're going to be talking about game preservation, right? And with retro games and the future of gaming in general, and to just preserve that through life. And before we start the discussion, I think it's important to define what it is. So let's ask you guys, why is game preservation important for the next generation of gamers? So if anyone wants to start.
Justin, this is all you, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, game preservation, I believe, is becoming more and more critical over time. Yeah. Because games as a whole are becoming this massive part of like the media sort of entertainment sphere. It's like it's got the lion's share at this point. And every day we get new people playing games, and every day we get, you know, old school gamers trying new stuff and all this. But like, it's really where the original experiences came from. Those, you know, those old consoles we used to play on, the, you know, the original titles that helped grow this massive industry. You know, it's those that really help define, you know, where it all started, where it all came from. And being able to enjoy those experiences and looking at them and learning from them, and really just kind of, you know, retaining those authentic original experiences as they were intended to be.
Yes.
I think is just so critical to understanding this medium that, you know, that now has grown to like $100 billion, whatever it is, industry, you know, and has captured the hearts and minds of people around the world, you know. And it's cool to, you know, to be a kid and get exposed to games for the first time and, you know, play Fortnite or whatever it is that you're playing right now.
Sure.
But, you know, if you really have that sort of passion for it, you want to be able to look back and see where these things started, where those experiences originally came from, and to be able to go back and touch it and like play it and really feel, you know, the evolution of games over time. I think it's just super important. You know what I mean? It's kind of us putting the signal out that this stuff is important to us and it's worth remembering. And at least for me, I think it's hugely important. You know what I mean? Much of my history, much of, you know, the industry that I work in, and all of this stuff that we've been able to achieve here is based on, you know, this
this
you know, based
philosophy.
On
yeah.
So I think it's you know, if we want to be taken seriously in this medium, we need to take it seriously, and I think game preservation is a huge part of that.
No, I highly agree with you. In fact, that's why I was so excited to purchase your product, the GCHD, just because I don't really touch emulators. I know that it's a thing. You can emulate it on your computer. It's fine. But like, I want to play it on the GameCube.
Yeah.
You know, like I want to play Super Mario Sunshine
with your GameCube controller.
Yeah. Put the disc in to the console. But like what you said, you know, like to touch it, to feel it, not to just emulate it. It doesn't have the same effects, right? Chou, do you have any other thoughts on this?
I mean, just like Justin said before, and he is the true collector between the two of us.
Yeah.
What it comes down to is that he has tons of money to spend on this stuff, and I just don't. But truthfully, it really does come down to the idea, and again, the philosophy behind EON and the philosophy that we've held dear for a long time is, yeah, you can play games on emulators, and sure, the software is almost there, but it really isn't the same experience, right? And it's weird because like, and maybe it sounds a little elitist, but it does feel and play and experience completely differently when you sit down and you put a cartridge into a slot, and then you flip on the button, like the power button, and you hold the controller, and then you sit in front of this TV and you're playing it, right? In our case, what we want to do is have all that original stuff fall within that same umbrella, but then at the same time allow it to be taken far into the future, you know, so that it's not left behind. Because you think about development teams, studios, you know, manufacturers, all of those productions, all of those things that had to happen, all the people that put in like blood, sweat, and tears to make these experiences happen would be completely lost otherwise. You know, none of that would be able to be played again had it not been for modders out there, or for instance, companies like ours trying to allow for that to come into the future with us, and not even just be here, but then also be able to be played better than it ever has before, without having to add on gaudy, you know, connectors or ridiculous like cutout parts of the chassis so that you can have an HDMI signal out kind of situation.
No, yeah, it looks incredible, your products. Like I remember putting it in for the first time, and I was just like, I was completely like mind blown. I was like, because it doesn't, I mean, it doesn't look fake or zoomed out. It looks in the ratio it's intended, but the colors, it looks proper, and the colors are so vivid, and it's smooth, and the frame rate is just like untouched. And I was like,
right,
it's incredible. I mean, Liz, you played a little bit on the GameCube. Why do you think game preservation is so important? Do you have any thoughts?
Mostly the same as your reason, because the systems that we have were mine growing up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not something that we bought. It's literally things that my parents bought brand new, and I've had in my life since I was a kid. So it's that experience of being able to play on, your own system, having that controller hand, and having that just nostalgia take over for a while.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
just let it wash over you.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I just said just let it wash over you. You can just...
Yeah. I mean, there is kind of a weird like romantic sort of nature to, you know, using an original system with the original controller, and you get to, you know, place the disc in the drive and you hear that click and everything, and it really is a very special thing. And you know, we're getting to be adults at this point, right? So I have such direct, clear memories of when I got these things for the first time and what it was like to you know, place that disc in and turn it on for the first time. Even the noise that it makes, like the whir when the system turns on, it's like it's all so ingrained in my head. And now to be able to go back and have those experiences and have them look and play better than they ever have before it's really awesome. You know, it's really something else that I don't think you can necessarily appreciate something like that in another medium, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, you can go back and watch the remasters of the original Star Wars trilogy, but we all know that those are worse.
And it's cool too. It's starting to become like on the fact of game preservation, right? One of the things that Justin and we just came back from Seattle, and we had a panel literally about game preservation. But one of the things that we started, correct? What was that?
At PAX West?
Yes, at PAX West. A first ever panel. Horrifying experience. At first, we had a lot of people that started plowing through the doors, and we were like, "Oh, I thought there was going to be 20. There's 200 of you." But one of the biggest topics that came up was like, interestingly enough, we're now in essentially like very much in the first wave of retro being cool. You know, being to a point where people want to start picking up their old stuff again, and then hearing like the ding of a Game Boy. You know, and it's interesting too because I remember just seeing it happened like on the train one day. Somebody pulled out a fat Game Boy and just started playing it, and then immediately started talking to some other business guy about like their old childhood, like, you know, games that they used to play on this thing. Definitely didn't know each other beforehand. So now I'm starting to think, well, retro and preservation in mind is not just here to stay, or rather something that's important, but it's something that's becoming a fad too. So I think right now, if anything, is a time to start telling people, hey, so this is important stuff and we should kind of like take care of it, you know?
No, dead on. Now you did talk a little bit about how EON Gaming Products help with game preservation, but I want to ask you, are there any more plans to make other EON products? Like, so far you've made the Super 64, which is the N64's component, and the GameCube HD. Is there any other plans to make more?
Pack it up. We're done. It's over.
So the short answer is yes. We're definitely looking into more solutions for other consoles from our past.
I like how you used solutions.
It is important to know that every retro console handles video out specifically very differently. So it takes a bit of R&D and a bit of time to really kind of figure out what the absolute best solution that we can create for those consoles are, and that's kind of our operation here. Like, that's what we're trying to do, is really getting the absolute best out of an original console in a plug and play factor. So it's super simple. There's basically no setup at all, and to deliver it onto a modern display as perfectly as possible. So we are heavily into in the R&D phases for other consoles that we're very excited to announce, but we cannot announce them here. But they are imminent. So if you're interested in seeing what we're up to next, I would definitely follow us on Twitter. I would definitely keep an eye on our website and see kind of how we continue to make our retro consoles look and play better than they ever have before.
And a huge part of like our production line and the pipeline comes down to not just what's possible, but also like what people are asking for. And like we're in a really interesting spot now that since we started doing stuff like this, people now know us as the guys who are bringing the old consoles back to the modern generation. So we get a lot of requests in personally, like whether it be emails or Twitter or at the show floor. Yeah, exactly. Please, by all means, please tell us what you guys want, because that builds interest for us to look into them even further. So right now we have a few front runners that we can't discuss just yet because I feel like it'll give away too much. But people are asking for stuff, and we definitely want to hear them out. And we definitely want to see if we can satiate that, because I mean, we're I feel like we're also part of the community to the point where we want all of our consoles done, but we have to focus on one at a time.
Mhm.
Oh, sure.
So it's like, well, who of the community, how many people of the community would want something like this? That's the one we'll work on next.
Yeah. So for those of you that do send us those emails, thank you for that. For those of us that see us at conventions and share their thoughts on what they want to see, like we absolutely hear you. Yeah, we're definitely excited. The few that we're working on right now, I could be the most excited about these so far.
Mhm.
Yeah, but we'll see. We'll see.
Man. And there's no way we can reel in a little hint here. You can't really cast a dream at all.
You're so cute.
I don't know.
You're talking about Neo Geo, right?
Oh, of course. No, I
will say that it's a retro console by any means.
Yeah,
Confirmed.
we can
just
say.
Oh,
I think the closest we can get to saying something is they are other beloved consoles of similar or different generations. I know that doesn't really give you much to work with, but
It's right
Yeah.
but wrong, true but false.
Yeah.
There you go.
I like it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it.
Let's say the ones that people are asking for, we're definitely considering the most. So
I like it. Yeah. So I won't torture anymore. I think we'll move on. So I want to talk about more of game preservation, right? And
Sure.
I want to ask you guys, do you guys see an end to physical media in sight with digital distribution on the rise? I mean, we saw that, what was that one Disney game that was just off of the PlayStation market, the DuckTales Remastered?
DuckTales Remastered, yep.
And people are just saying like, wow, this is really important for game preservation. So I want to ask you guys, do you see an end in sight for physical media?
Justin?
So I believe that there will always be a market for physical media, but I think we will see it slow down very, very heavily.
Man.
Like I think they will probably be, we're at a point now where we're starting to see sales numbers coming back from places like, Sony, and we see that digital is outselling physical. I highly doubt that we'll see physical media go away anytime soon. But if we're talking like down the line, like 10 years or so, I imagine physical media will be more of a novelty, but there will always be people that will be, very concerned with making sure that, they're able to get their games physically. I mean, we see what companies like Limited Run are doing right now, which is super awesome. We're friends with the guys down there. They're all awesome. We really love what they're doing. And I think they're doing really good work. Like, there's clearly an audience of people that are looking for stuff like that. And what's awesome is they're also, going back and doing retro stuff now. They actually are launching the retro Star Wars games. So like Shadows of the Empire for N64. And there was like a bit of a cross promotion with Super 64 for that, which was super cool.
Oh, that's cool.
But it's clear to me that companies like theirs are putting the want for physical media, that's like paramount right now, right? But again, they only release things in limited quantities. There's not very many of them, and I imagine as we go down the line, even for like AAA stuff, we're going to see more of that happening. Because the reality of the situation is games are not cheap to make. They're not cheap to market, and they're definitely not cheap to maintain. So if they can cut out part of the cost of that by just like removing the physical distribution for it, I mean, even now, it's a very weird situation that we're in, because most physical media that you pick up, you can likely get cheaper than digital, which is really bizarre. Like I'm still picking up my games for like a new game, like Borderlands 3 just came out 2 days ago. I picked it up for $48 at a Best Buy.
Wow.
Whereas if you wanted to buy it digitally, you're getting it for $60.
Yeah.
And
Heyo, that's what I did.
yeah, it's like those digital prices, I feel like will remain the same for a while. But physical media, I feel like even now is still like, it's not, I can guarantee it's not making places like Best Buy very much money. And if we're seeing someone like Sony reporting that they are indeed selling more digital than physical, then I'm of the mind that it's only a matter of time. Because they're gonna save whatever money they can by not shipping as many. But if they make it more of a novelty, like if it's a collector's edition version and that's how you get the physical one, then I could see that happening.
Yeah. It's a shame, but I totally agree with you that it's just it's coming down the pipeline. It's not going to come like tomorrow.
Yeah,
but I feel like this generation coming, when the Xbox Scarlet and the PS5 come out, that I agree with you. You're going to see less and less of that, which is highly unfortunate.
Yeah, and trust me, like I know I'm saying this stuff in kind of like a cavalier way. I'm definitely not happy about it. Like if I wish I could send you pictures of my collection. It's pretty ridiculous. And I'm certainly running out of space to hold it all. But it's the kind of thing where it's just like you have to read the writing on the walls, you know.
Oh, totally.
And it seems like we're definitely headed in that direction. And realistically, like, you know, like I said, I think the physical media will still exist, but I think we're going to see, like you're talking about Xbox Scarlet and PS5. I would almost guarantee that when those systems come out, there's going to be some sort of deal where if you were to buy the game digitally, you'll get it earlier than the physical release of it.
Yeah.
I imagine something like that will be happening, sort of like what Limited Run's doing with like Switch games, right?
Yeah.
Like they're releasing Switch games alongside release, but you don't get them until 3 months after the digital version comes out. But I mean, I don't know. There's a whole bunch of different ways that it can go, but I tend to believe that most businesses are trying to make money. So if they find something that will make them more money and save them costs, they will likely do that. So that's kind of what I'm imagining is going to happen.
And right now it's falling under convenience over like I guess preservation in general, because it's like both. If it's cost effective, sure, and as far as people are concerned, they find it as convenient not to have to interact with anybody or go outside to the local Best Buy to pick up a physical game. So it's, as Justin said, the writing on the wall is pretty obvious.
No, it totally. As we're running out of time, I definitely want to ask you a ton more questions about this, but I want to bring it to even farther out in the future. Once now we're talking about the next generation, but once this generation, once the Xbox One, PS4, Nintendo Switch, Wii U, I guess, can count as that too.
We can leave that out.
Yeah, Nintendo's leaving it out, but once this generation becomes retro gaming, which I don't know when that will be. But now let me ask you a little sidebar here. What do you define as retro gaming in the terms of how many generations have to pass before a certain console becomes a retro gaming console?
I'd say it's usually about a 15 to 20 year cycle, something like that.
Okay, yeah.
I would actually base it off more on like hardware. I mean, hardware and it's the generation based off of where we're at right now versus what it was back then, right? So anything that has to do with anything prior to a HDMI cord, I would probably put into a retro category at this time, because it's like where we're at right now, what's retro is things that are either obsolete but still cool, or like things that are kind of intangible. I'd probably put in that.
No, that's a good footnote.
I think it's going to evolve and be different over time, because I mean, we see certain things like, you know, Atari is considered retro for a while, but there's really not much like love or attention put on that console anymore. Like most games you can get for like $1, which is kind of crazy. But like you look at stuff on the NES and the Super Nintendo, you know, we're talking about GameCube and all this stuff. Like a lot of these games still retain a pretty serious amount of value, and I think because there's a lot of nostalgia tied to them. I think Nintendo in particular carries a lot of that sort of nostalgic value. So I think those are always going to sort of remain in that place. But you know, I remember at a time when like PS3 was out. And I would look at PS2 games and I'd be like, oh man, there's just so much junk on PS2. There's like thousands of games that came out for it, and like half of them are trash and all this stuff. And I didn't really like take that console seriously. But now it's like, now I find myself going back to the PS2 and I'm like, man, like, you know, there's some really good games here, and there's really no other way to play them than on this console. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Same thing with, you know, original Xbox, or even like other weird consoles like the PSP, some PS1 games, all this kind of stuff. And I think that mentality is going to carry forward in later generations. Like the PS3, most people look at PS3 and 360 games right now, and they're like, man, like most of these games are junk. There's so many of them. They're made so like they're so cheap now. Like I don't think there's a single PS3 game that you could get for like, you know, any more than like $20. Like I think every PS3 game that you could ever want is $20 or less.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But I think when time begins to pass and people start thinking back and remembering like, oh man, like, you know, there was some really good stuff on the PS3 that you really can't play anymore. Like I would almost guarantee we're never going to see a, you know, remaster of something like 3D Dot Game Heroes. But like, you know, people might want to go back and play that game. And I have a feeling that, you know, games like that are going to retain some value, especially like, you know, 2-3 generations after they pass. It seems like it's about that. It's like two 2 to 3 generations after a system comes out is usually when people start getting those nostalgia goggles, and that's because 2 to 3 generations tends to be about 15-ish years. So
No, I agree with that. Now, we have 10 minutes left about, and I want to respect you guys' time. So I'm going to combine my last 2 questions into one, and I would love to get your thoughts on it. So I'm going to bounce back to what I was originally going to ask because I got sidetracked there. But once this current generation becomes retro gaming, and even the 360, I guess, once this generation becomes retro gaming, do you think it will be as respected and preserved in the same way retro games are today? And I'm going to combine my last question. Do we see a bright or a bleak future for retro games that are today?
I could start on that. So as far as our current situation is concerned, retro gaming in the future, and we're not talking about the retro games now going into the future, rather we're talking about the current games going into the future and what those look like when they're retro, right? The difficulty with a lot of that stuff that we're starting to think about right now, and that also came up during that panel, is the idea of a lot of these games kind of being internet based or multiplayer based, right? We're starting to see there was obviously a blip in a few of the, let's say, first person shooters where multiplayer was the only thing that was on the menu, right? There was no single player campaign, right? We're starting to see a lot of games nowadays like Apex or Fortnite, for instance, that require server access, require the massive amount of players to play. And without that, the game's not the same experience anymore. So as far as a future right now, there are definitely games out there that will still be preserved and still go into the future and still be played on these old consoles. But is it going to be a bleaker future? Probably, possibly, maybe, depending on how everything turns out. I feel like anything that requires a massive level of interest in order to play at its intended experience will most likely go by the wayside, and we'll most likely forget those or just see the evolved forms of those in the future. Like a Fortnite 40, a Fortnite like 3, 4, 5, or 6 or something like that. Those will potentially continue until that battle royale phase is kind of like put to bed, and then now we're just watching videos of it.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that it's completely bleak. I feel like some of the experiences will still be there. I feel like the genres have it broadened to a point where there are certain genres that just won't carry very well, won't age very well. There are still games now that will carry just fine. I mean, with the Switch coming out with cartridge-based stuff, they've definitely taken a point where, physical media will definitely be still strong in the next 5 to 10 years, but we'll see what happens on the 11th to 20th year,
True.
Yeah, I think an important part to consider also is much of the collecting I do is like complete in-box stuff. And part of why I love to do that is because a lot of what you're seeing in those boxes kind of captures that moment in time, right? Like you look at Super Nintendo boxes and they're like they're so 90s, it's not even funny. Like it's really awesome. Like I think that really captures that time. And I think as we look at stuff like the Switch and whatnot, like once we get to a point where people are going to start to have those nostalgia goggles for it. I mean, you've got to figure there's a lot of people where the Nintendo Switch is the first console that they've ever gotten to play on, so they're going to have those memories of looking at, that Super Mario Odyssey cover and be like, man, this like just captures this moment in time so well. And the best part is a lot of the original titles that are specifically for these consoles are really good, So I imagine there's going to be people, 10 years down the line that are going to look at something like Breath of the Wild and be like, man, like this was a pretty revolutionary game when it came out, and it's just got all this like nostalgic value. Like it really is kind of like a moment in time that this game came out. And I want to revisit that,
No, dead on.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I like that. And that's just it. It's just like you want to revisit that. There's a lot of games that are coming out in this generation that are revolutionary to the game. I just got done playing God of War for the PS4, and what
great game,
amazing game, and what that game does just in terms of loading screens and storytelling and story pacing is just unbelievable. And I would want my kids someday to just experience that game, right?
Yeah, you know, I mean, this is where like, so you know, not to get really like pluggy or anything,
Go for
but
it.
like when we were creating the marketing stuff for the Super 64, you know, everybody thinks about Super Mario 64, and like anybody who's our age or a little bit older has had some sort of revolutionary experience with that game. And the reality is like you can't play that game like in another format right now. I mean, you could play it on like the Wii U and whatnot, but it's not going to feel the way that it originally
exactly
had to feel. It's that ridiculous controller that really kind of made that experience. It's like when you put that in your hand and then you turn it on, you're like, okay, like you know, this is something totally new. And there's something really special about, I think, putting that cartridge into the system and turning it on and feeling that controller in your hands. That's like, man, like this is what this experience was meant to be like. And that's why, you know, when we started creating the video content and all this stuff, we leaned pretty heavily on that because we knew that people are going to be like, man, like that's how you play Mario 64. You know, like this is, you know,
exactly
like Mario 64 is an unbelievable game, and that's, you know, that's something worth revisiting, I think. And you know, it's actually aged pretty well, all things considered.
Yeah,
I think it has. I think it continually will be. We only have a couple more minutes left. Chou, do you have any final thoughts?
Thoughts on bleak futures versus bright futures?
I guess so. Yeah.
I guess. I mean, overall, I think the I don't know. I guess that my personal outlook on retro gaming in general is more of a, I don't know, I guess more of a preservation and more of a way to like kind of like understand and appreciate the culture that we're all kind of passionate about. I guess my final closing statements are just basically just I'm afraid to see a future where we don't know where all this stuff came from, where we don't understand where a certain mechanic was originated from, you know, where we're not giving credit where credit is due to some of the like the forefathers of gaming in general. You know, it's very fortunate for us that we live in a day and age where, let's say, we can enjoy a medium that has grown to the multiple hundreds of billions of dollars, right?
Right on.
Where we still have the grandfather of all the software, you know, like Miyamoto's still around. He's still alive, which is weird when you think about it. When you think about things like music, who was the first person to create music? Or let's talk about classical music. You know, Beethoven's not alive anymore. You can't talk to him, but you can talk to Miyamoto. I saw him on Jimmy Fallon. You know, look, whoa.
That's crazy. I never thought of it like that.
Yeah.
There's going to be a moment where some kid back at the back tail of, you know, 2100 something, going to be like, what was Miyamoto like? Like, who is that guy? Like, I'm watching these old prehistoric YouTube videos about him on Jimmy Fallon playing, you know, guitar with everybody. But who are these people?
That's crazy to think about. Yeah.
So anything that we can do in order to kind of like continue that tradition is something that we're all about.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's it. Was that? Oh, go for it.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, I think my only closing statement that I have about retro is like, I honestly am feeling super confident about it. It's really reassuring to me when we go to some of these retro events like LA Retro, and you know, we see people our age who you expect to be into this kind of thing, but you also see like little kids, like little kids that are talking about playing A Link to the Past for the first time, or like, you know,
they like double dash more than Mario Kart 8. Like,
they'll recognize Mario 64 or something, and it really kind of gives me a lot of it's like it makes me feel good because it lets me know, like, kind of signals that there is a consistent interest in this, and that it does reach further than just our generation. But it's also that, like, you know, these people are going to care about it. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be maintained, and like I said earlier, like, you know, we all love this medium so much, and I know that it's critical for me for I think all of us, you know, I think Justin would feel the same way, where it's like, you know, maintaining these experiences and holding on to them and really kind of, you know, championing our roots. I think it's really what helps, you know, define, solidify, and validate, you know, all of the awesome progress that we've seen this industry take in the last few years. And I don't know, I feel really good about it. And I think, honestly, the games are good enough where people are going to want to go back and play them regardless, you know?
Maybe it's not even having confidence in the fact that, you know, people like this like this medium, but also it's like very confidence boosting to know that there are people like us who have the same type of like I guess philosophies on like how to appreciate and understand and like keep our old things, you know.
For
It's
sure.
weird.
No, dead on.
Yeah.
I think that's a good place to end our conversations. Justin's, I guess I'm going to say.
Yeah, that's fine.
Justin's, I very much thank you for coming on the show. You had amazing points. I think you inspired a lot of our listeners, especially from giving advice of how to follow your passions in life, to preserving your love for retro games in any way, fashion, and form. But anybody who's listening, definitely look up EON Gaming. They have 2 products out so far. The Super 64, which enhances your Nintendo 64 and your GameCube, the GCHD. I highly recommend these products because they give everything.
Thanks, man.
I mean, I'm honest about this. It's in the right ratio with bright colors. It looks like an HD version of what you remember. It's exactly what you remember. But so any other or I was gonna say any plugs you would like to give, your Twitter handles where people can follow you, find you?
Yeah, so our Twitter handle, if you would like to follow, because that's the thing that I guess that we're most active on. We're trying to understand Instagram and Facebook on like what to do there, but
Yeah.
I'm not good with pictures. But anyways, for Twitter at least, it is at EON _Gaming HD. So that's EON _Gaming HD. Come find us. We talk directly to all of our customers and anybody else in the community who has any questions about our products or would like to know more. If you want to give us more requests on what you would like to see from us, we are absolutely accepting those requests. So please let us know. Give us some direction. That'd be awesome. But otherwise, you know, there's always ways to reach us if you need us.
Nice. Good stuff.
But no, you guys, like, thank you so much for having us on. It was really an awesome opportunity to sit down and talk to you. And honestly, when we like meeting you guys at LA Retro, I knew you guys were awesome people. So
Thank
it
you.
was,
man.
Thank you.
you know, it was a cool opportunity to get to reconnect like this and talk a little bit more. So thank you so much for having us.
No,
Yeah,
that's
thank
no
you.
problem. And like I said, when we met at LA Retro, I'm like, I got to get these guys on the show because like the passion and the drive you guys have. I'm like, I need our audience to like hear what they have to say.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I know you guys are busy, so I'll end it here just to let you guys go. I won't trap you in this podcast anymore.
Jeez.
But so we thank you guys again. And again, to our audience, follow them on Twitter. It's EON _Gaming HD. I will have it linked down in the description down below. I will also have the Amazon links to the products. So definitely, if you're interested in that, you can give that a click. Go for it. And you know where to find us on the social media garbage. You can follow us on Twitter, Gaming Groceries. You can follow us on Instagram, Games and Groceries, all one word. Check out our website, gamesandgroceries.com. And I will end it there. We will, because
Good
Liz is here
job.
too.
Yeah.
We will see you in the next episode. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.